So coming at you with a build guide. This isn't going to be a typical build guide in the sense of it's not going to have any playthroughs or anything to go along with it. But it's just like new ideas for the new Ascendancies that are coming out. I figure I'd post a couple of these before the league starts. So if anybody's looking for a build, this I think is actually a pretty strong one. It's basically Scorching Ray Totems, except it gets a huge buff because now instead of having to use, like before we used Trickster and it was mostly for utility, you could have also used Berserker for the 40% more damage, which was a substantial damage boost, but pretty much gave you nothing else, right? And now you have Hierophant, and Hierophant's really great because it just adds basically 2 additional totems for no reason, and that's a huge buff to Scorching Ray since it didn't really scale off anything like crit that Inquisitor would do. So like if you're doing like a Freezing Pulse build, for example, right, like my Freezing Pulse totem build, you can take Hierophant, but the opportunity cost is that you're sacrificing the pen, the cast speed, the crit, just the more damage from this node or whatever, right? But with this, you're not really sacrificing hardly anything because Inquisitor is a pretty bad Ascendancy for it. I would say Trickster is still a good Ascendancy with the way they changed Patient Reaper. It's just very regen-centric now, so as opposed to getting a lot more damage, you're going to just have a lot more utility again. But none of these other Ascendancies really provide much in terms of damage. And Hierophant gives you 2 additional totems, which basically stack. The only thing is that the stack is the pen, but this number will basically stack. So now we have 5 times the totems if you use Soul Mantle, because you have this, plus the 1 totem original, plus the Soul Mantle is 3, plus this, plus this. That's 5 totems. Now the reason why this isn't allocated is because I made this before the new PoE went live, so I just threw in a Ruby Flask here to add the extra stuff. It doesn't even have all the stats because it didn't really count the in-between nodes here. It's missing like the 20 placement speed or whatever. So, just to talk about this a bit, as you can see, right now it does like 2 mil to Shaper. Where is it? What the fuck? They change? Oh, okay, yeah. Okay, there you go. So they changed how this is configured. But there's the Shaper thing. A couple things. Obviously, you're getting the main ones, Elemental Overload and Elemental Equilibrium. We're using the Soul Mantle because it lets us use an extra link. So the links are Scorching Ray, Efficacy, Elemental Focus, Burning Damage, Swift Affliction, and Controlled Destruction. All very strong. And how are we running Righteous Fire, right? So you don't have to run Righteous Fire for this build. I'm just going to put that out there. I'm probably, when I do build this, I'm probably not going to run Righteous Fire. I may run it in certain circumstances. The thing is that you're kind of like limited by a Ruby Flask a bit, because if you notice when you take off the Ruby, your regen sort of plummets. Now, I think if we put the Sulfur Flask on, we might have to go into the configuration and, okay, we're on Consecrated Ground already, yeah. Okay. So yeah, if you take the Ruby Flask off, your regen plummets a bit. You can run 2 of these if you really want, because the build isn't that intensive on using other flasks. It doesn't require many unique flasks or anything like that. So you can use 2 of them, get duration on them or whatever, and then rotate them. And honestly, like, your regen isn't going to be that poor, even when they're not upright. But you can always just take off Righteous Fire, and I'll get into that in a second. But if you want to run Righteous Fire, what I have right here is use the Sephel's Flame, and then use, where is it? Purity of Fire, basically, is what you use, and that's pretty much enough to run it, because you get a bunch of regen from the tree. And how Righteous Fire works is that it's only going to degen one of your sources of HP at a time, so it's degenning Energy Shield. It doesn't affect your mana at all, because even though you have Mind Over Matter, taking damage to your ES doesn't draw from MOM, which is actually kind of a bit unfortunate, because it would make running this easier. But you don't have that big of an ES value, right? So that means that the degen is not actually going to be that severe, which is why you're able to run Righteous Fire. But let's just say that you don't want to run it, so we'll take it off. Oops. Okay. So we go down to like 300k per, which is still 1.5 million, which is great. And now we have a ton of extra regen. We have like almost 1,000 ES regen per second. I put it on the ES because if you put it on life, it's more, but you just don't obviously use it as much, right? Because ES is the first thing you're getting hit from. So there's that, and then a couple other things here. So we won't need Purity of Fire if we're not running Righteous Fire, right? Which means you can then put Herald of Ash in. Now, Herald of Ash, I believe, isn't updated on PoB, but it should give more damage to Scorching Ray. So your damage will go up a little bit there if you want to use it. Alternatively, you could use none of these and just have your full mana pool available. But you don't really have a ton of life, so this is going to be some overkill with the mana. Another thing you can do is just use Herald of Ash and not use Discipline. And then you have like 1,700 mana available, and that is closer to in line with your life value. So you can mix this around depending on how you want. You still have like a decent amount of regen and a decent amount of ES without using Discipline. So it's really just up to you. Now, for a shield, you're not going to use Cephals, obviously, right? So you can use this. You're going to get a lot more life, some more damage, and a substantial amount more energy shield. You can get a better shield than this, but this is just like, it's a cheap shield and easy to throw in there, right? So if you put that with Discipline, you're actually at like 3,500 ES, pretty much 5k life. And like, yeah, a decent amount of mana. So that's one of the configurations. I think honestly this is probably going to be the configuration that I'm going to use to boss, because it has like a lot of effective health, good regen, and it should have even more damage, like I said, when Herald of Ash gets updated. For the Golem, I'm using Stone Golem because getting the 20% extra damage from Flame Golem just isn't so enticing to me when I can get more regen. And as you can see, we actually go over the 1,000 regen barrier right here once we up the energy shield a bit. Nothing much to say about Orbis Storms and Arcane Surge. That's pretty standard. In terms of the actual Ascendancy, we take this. This would be allocated. You don't have to take this, but taking this Conviction of Power isn't really that great because you don't get the pen. It's nice to have Endurance charges if you want to make yourself a bit more tanky. But really, the power charges don't do anything for you. And then you could take this, but it's really just giving you 40% increased spell damage, right? So in my opinion, I think that the 30% max mana as max or as extra energy shield is great. So yeah, that's why I take that. And then you notice we don't get the placement speed nodes down here, but it's not a huge deal because we have a ton of placement speed from Hierophant itself. And in terms of the gems, we're actually using Grand Spectrums here. You don't have to use these. I don't know how expensive they're going to be, but they're probably the best gem you can use for damage. If you want more survivability, you'd obviously get like maybe Abyss Jewels or normal jewels, but those are the best things for survivability. And then Self-Flagnation obviously is for damage because you're going to be running the Kikazara with the Soul Mantle. Then you can always throw... Why is it the Sulfur Flask giving increased damage? That's weird. But maybe there's another one active somewhere. But anyways, that's pretty much what your setup's going to look like. You can always swap this neck out too with a regen neck, but this is like basically the highest damage version. I guess another notable to point out is Val's Vision. I like running this a lot lately. As long as you don't have any corrupted items, it's very efficient, gives you a nice amount of regen and pretty much good resists with decent armor. Just doesn't give you a ton of energy shield. You could always swap that out for like a really good hybrid Hubris if you wanted. And you'd push your ES up even further by a fairly significant amount, lose a bit of armor, may even gain some health if it's a really high level Hubris. So like I said, you can always replace the shield as well. This can be replaced by something that does more damage, but Dorianians is just a pretty good benchmark for this. Yeah, Stygian Vise, it's pretty standard. boots. I don't think boots really have... Yeah, the pen enchant unfortunately doesn't work because Scorching Ray doesn't pen. So getting... And I'm not really sure what you'd get for an enchant on boots. Probably just if you've been hit, more life regen and mana regen, stuff like that. So that would make you a little bit tankier there. But yeah, that's pretty much it. So thanks for watching, and I think that's pretty much everything, right? I showed everything. Yeah. So that's pretty much everything, and feel free to like, comment, whatever. I'm going to be releasing another one of these, probably. I think it's like a Blade Flurry build later on, so keep an eye out for that. But thanks again, and talk to you guys later.